Welcome to Tansson TV Plus. Of course, I'm Brandon.
And Mom. Thank you for joining us today, especially for today because it's another first episode Friday.
Yes, and we are continuing on with our theme of the protectors. And Mom, what show are we speaking about here today?
Today we're going to talk about Hawaii Five-0.
Yes, and so this is a series that neither of us have ever seen. Whether the old version or the new version, but we were speaking about the original one from, I believe, 1969.
Yes, 1969, and then it goes to, I believe, Brandon, did you tell me 1980?
I think I did.
Yes, yes. And so I'll begin and just give a very, very brief synopsis.
Yeah, you can go ahead right on with your synopsis. And like you said, it is 1968, actually, to 1980, 12 seasons.
Wow, that's incredible. All right, Brandon, I'm gonna give a brief synopsis of this particular, and it's a two-part episode that we're going to discuss. And the first of all, the series takes place in Hawaii, and it's really about one main detective named Steve. In this particular movie slash episode, first of the series thing, Steve investigates the death of a man who is discovered on the beach. And this is considered a suspicious death because Steve personally knows this person, and he knew that this man could not swim, but there were indicators on him that he had been in the water. Um, and so he investigates and finds out that there is a mole within the organization, and there's also some illegal human testing that's occurring. The illegal human testing has to do with sensory deprivation, and kind of like what happens when senses are blocked. And so that is actually the whole episode in a nutshell. Very simple for 2 hours, but that's about it.
Well, Mom, thank you so much for that.
You're welcome, Brandon.
Yeah, and diving into this a little bit. So it certainly was interesting seeing this, like you said, with the main character of Steve McGarrett. And I mean, there were like one or two other actors of prominence, but he seems like the true main focus of the series based off of this two-parter episode.
Yeah, he did. All the characters around him, there was really not another main character. He was it.
Yeah, and I will note too that in the different places that we have found Hawaii 5 that the whole series seems like the episodes are out of order, but the two episodes that we believe are the first ones are the episodes Cocoon Part 1 and Part 2, which are the ones we saw from September 20th of 1968. But but overall, Mom, I would say so. So just aside from the synopsis, like, what were your honest thoughts about this pilot episode or two episodes or series premiere, rather?
Well, I kind of selected this show, Brandon, and so the answer I did select it just because I've really never seen Hawaii Five-0. We talked about Detective series and Protector series, and it's like, okay, let's try this one. I'm glad we watched it. The question of would we watch it again? Maybe not, but we did watch the episode. And your thoughts, Brandon?
Yeah, I agree with you. Like I said, I truly have never seen the show, either iteration of it, but but after you suggested it, I was a little bit curious about going into it. But yeah, after viewing it, like I said, nothing necessarily wrong about the show per se, but I don't think that the show, based off of these two episodes, are for me per se. That yeah, and sometimes, as we've seen, the first episodes aren't always indicative of the future part of the series. But yeah, if this is our first impression, I wasn't that interested.
Yeah, like I said, maybe I'll catch one more, but that's about it as far as I'm concerned with this particular show. Um, I don't know if it was because it was dated, although we've watched a lot of dated shows, and I have gone back and watched series before that were dated, of course, but it just seemed very dated. Um, the I don't know. It just didn't pique my interest as some other shows. It'd be interesting to see if the audience likes it. It'll be interesting to see if maybe if I watch the new version of Hawaii Five-0 to see what my thoughts will be. If any of y'all have seen the new version, let us know. So maybe we can check that out one day.
Yeah, and again, like I said, the series did run for 12 seasons. And so maybe it's just that, like I said, these are the first two episodes, of over 200 something. And so maybe it's that we just need to pick a, random episode in the middle somewhere that, maybe it picked up a little bit, or towards the end, because I'm sure they've had a wide range of characters throughout the years, and so yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, when you watch a detective series, I think some of the things that they try to do, at least for the first episode, is trying to give creative credibility and likability to the main characters. And the side characters, I like some of them. I thought some of them were kind of funny, but the likability of Steve, I don't know yet, based upon this particular episode. The credibility, they did give him that. He had a backstory in regards to he had a partner who was killed, um, and he wants to kind of help with the public, but I don't know.
Yeah, and the beginning of this episode, they had a sort of like who's the bad guy, sort of scene that I don't know if it was 100% effective. Where only thing we knew is that at the very first scene that there was some mysterious bad guy smoking a pipe, and that we didn't see, and doing while overseeing the torturous things that were happening to somebody. And so the first, maybe, half of the first half of the episode, give or take, maybe even the first full episode, they spent being like, well, who's the bad guy? There were a lot of suspicious people and smoking all the different, pipes and cigars and everything to figure out who it is. But sure enough, it ends up being the guy that was supposed to be an ally, but I'm sure it was supposed to be there for suspense, but I don't know if I really cared, per se, as an audience member.
Yeah, like I said, it seemed incredibly long, and really, it did not have to be a 2 hour special. It could have been done in 1 hour. You're right. There was just a lot of buildup and I hate to say it, but the end result of it to me was not worth the buildup. Now, I will say they did take an interesting take that I didn't think about, and maybe it was the timing of it in regards to the sensory deprivation, because I've never thought of that type of crime before. But if the build up for it and the explanation that they had to give a really long explanation to explain what they were doing was not necessary per se.
Yeah, and I will note that while we are introduced to some other characters, is that I really thought the other characters were actually quite interesting. And not to say that McGarrett wasn't interesting, but in the same regard, I feel like I was a little bit more interested in hearing the other characters' backstory, as whereas we sort of saw McGarrett's, and it just, I don't know. I mean, he was a not play by the rules kind of guy, but he also follows everything to a T, which we've seen in the other police shows that we've seen over the course of this month. But whereas the other ones, we sort of get to see their interesting quirks, we don't
Yeah.
really get that. And maybe that's what we're missing here, is that we kind of like a quirkiness or a little bit of humor to it. Like when we had Scarecrow, Mrs. King. Scarecrow is a very flawed person,
Mhm.
despite how long he's been a detective. And Barney Mill, of course, was a sitcom, and so we get to see the more humorous side of things. Um, but whereas for this, McGarrett seems a very serious person, and the most really lively we get to see him is when he's dating I think, the not girlfriend of the person that was just killed.
Yeah, and that to me was just odd in itself too. The girlfriend that he had, it just went too fast for me for this type of series, for something that is drawn out as much as this two episodes were drawn out. That was a quick relationship that just kind of popped up out of nowhere.
Yeah, and I should add too that while we saw sort of the anticipation of the relationship, here and there, we skip straight from the action at the end of episode 2 to once it's coming to an almost close, we just cut from that and go straight to the end of the episode with like I said, McGarrett and the, I guess, girlfriend now. So I feel like it didn't even get closure with the 2 hours we've invested into this.
Yeah, I noticed that too, and that disturbed me. The fact that they didn't put full closure. I mean, they had, of course, Steve save the day, but then we don't know how he went from there to all of a sudden he's with the girl.
Yeah, so I'm curious as to how the series progressed, because clearly something must have worked for it to last 12 seasons. So I'm not sure if this was like episode 3, where they shifted something, or this is maybe in later seasons, or if there was just something that we just missed, because of course the seasons are allowed a lot of episodes to sort of get their footing.
Yeah, or maybe it's just a bad first episode. So, I mean, maybe we're just missing something. And I will say this, Brandon, after watching it, kind of some things I started to pick up, and I've mentioned some of these before, but just kind of put it collectively together, was the detective show in general. Some things I just kind of noticed after watching, like you mentioned, Barney Miller, and then watching Scarecrow and Mrs. King, that we know, like I mentioned, that credibility is given very early on for the detective. And they did try to do that in this one. They tried to give him some credibility early on. Now, whether or not we thought he was credible is something else, but they did try to give him some credibility a little early on. The backstory is there. We've noticed for the detectives that there's a reason why they had this need to, to fix the world. And in this case, his partner was killed. And we did notice that. That for some of the detective shows that we've seen, that was something that has happened before for previous, in the backstory. And they all seem to be rebels. Like they seem to have something about their own rules that they just stand out, meaning that they do have their own rules and they're able to do some things. And then one other thing I did want to mention that I noticed was the music in this one, because that one stood out to me pretty well. And I noticed this in Scarecrow and Mrs. King also, was that there were a lot of instrumental sections or parts of the show. And so that I kind of that part I kind of liked was the instrumental section because they did have a lot of movement at that time period. Did you have any thoughts or feelings, Bran?
Yeah, well, like I said, like you just mentioned, I mean, it definitely does have the instrumental theme, like I said, throughout. And I think that, in my personal thought anyway, that the theme song of it also worked quite well with with the theme. I thought it was, I thought it gave a nice balance to this theme, and actually was probably one of the more uplifting parts of it. Because I really do like the theme music for it. Like I
Mm.
said, I think it really uplifts the episodes. I just wish there was more that also uplifted the episodes.
Yes, yeah, I agree with you there.
And so like I said, so going into this, like I said, thus far you just gave a really great analysis as to comparing and contrasting some of the different protector shows that we have seen thus far in August 2024. But going into the final one next week, yeah, do you have any thoughts going into that one based off of what we've seen thus far?
Well, we've seen the final one, and I don't want to say what it is, but we will say it's a little bit more contemporary than of course, the Y50. But the final one, I think, because we have seen it, we know that some of these do exist, and we do know that these characteristics tend to be there. We'll have to see if the instrumental music part is there. That part I don't know because it has been a while since I've seen the first episode. But I do know for the characteristics that is there at the beginning.
Yeah, so I'm definitely curious, let's say, going into that. And of course, I've seen the next one as well, but I truly don't remember how exactly it all sort of uh, turns out, so to speak. I know the end result. So, yeah, I'm definitely excited to dive into that with this criteria, and then hopefully after that to go back to more sitcoms, our specialty.
Yes, we should be back to more sitcoms soon. So, guys, be ready for September with us.
Yes, definitely. And please don't forget to subscribe to our channel as well. We've seen all of you new viewers out there. So please feel free to continue on and to leave us some comments. Let us know you're watching.
Yes, please do so. And we thank you for joining us again today.
And we'll see you next time.
All right, bye, everybody.